You joined us for the best place to be on a Wednesday as Paul from Definity joins us to take a look at the macro picture for the markets, and then we dive into crypto and some nice altcoins and take a look and see what the price action is showing us. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do know I'm not a financial advisor. Paul is not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul is an investor across many markets. We do want to thank our Patreon members. We have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Also, we do have a free Telegram group you can join below with a fantastic community. Now make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul from Definity.
Great to be here as always. We're in a bit of a consolidation, so I think markets could be going sideways for a while, but there's still opportunities out there, and I think this is a really good time to be doing research, getting ready, keep your powder dry, and get ready for some opportunities. Yeah,
this is what the bear market feels like, and like the bottoms feel like, you know, and I like to say buy when it's boring. It's a fantastic time for research. The people that are around right now, they're smart because like overall the crypto market has been savage and it's cheap, and that won't always be the case. So the people that are here now will be well rewarded if they make some smart decisions.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you've got to be in it to win it. You've got to keep watching the market each week, and sometimes it can feel like there's nothing going on, and it can make you wonder whether you should be doing something else or doing a normal job, and then everything kicks off and it feels like the only place to be. So, I mean, we saw that towards the end of last year when everything was crashing in the ice age, and then look what followed. So it's normal markets. It's exactly how they are. But in the very short term, I think what's happened is we've got a consolidation because the crypto markets have caught up with what's been happening in the broader markets in terms of risk on. So there was a big risk on play and equities rallied aggressively, but the crypto space didn't follow until we got this bad news, or the bad news, out of the way, SBF stuff. And now that's out of the way, we had this big rally, so things have caught up. So there's a bit more synchronization between the global markets. And I think from here, what we're going to see is a bit of a consolidation, simply because the market is waiting for this signal that interest rates have stabilized. And that's really all they're looking for. Once we get the signal that they're not going to go up too much, and perhaps we're at the top of that tightening cycle, I think more capital will be deployed into the market. So the most sensitive of all of the asset classes is always the equity markets. And as we've seen for the last few weeks and months, they've been in a consolidation. Tech has not done as well as the core stocks, but that's to be expected. They outperformed, they underperform now, and you know, maybe we'll be in a period of outperformance. We'll have to see. But the most important stock, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to crypto, is Meta, and that, from doing really badly, is now moving back up and trending quite nicely to the upside. So that has got my interest. That will always stay in the background as being an interesting one to watch. And whilst that's happening, I think being or maintaining a core bullish view, which to be fair is what we've always had, is the right strategy for the long term.
What would be interesting is a lot of businesses like don't see their future demise, right? So Blockbuster Video, Netflix came to them and tried to sell for like $50 million. At the time, that would have been nothing for Blockbuster Video to pay that. And Netflix ended Blockbuster a number of years later because Blockbuster didn't innovate. And so Facebook is trying to see the future and innovate, right? And stay innovative. And a lot of the investors got really pissed off when they made the big change.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was absolutely right that they made the change, because whilst Facebook might have been doing relatively well, it has to innovate, because the problem with something like that is it can become very uncool, and it is becoming, or was uncool. I mean, the kids aren't on it, and if the kids aren't on it, you got a problem. So so they have to innovate. And what we know about all this technology that's out there is that it is possible to create more immersive experiences. And whilst it's nice to see people through, you know, the medium that we're using right now and to use video, that is still very much a 2D operation, and they're trying to turn it into a 3D event. And look, I don't know how good that's going to be within the next few years, but they are going to keep throwing money at it. And I think it's also very similar to what we saw when it comes to AI. I mean, the last couple of years I've been studying it, and I've thought it was fascinating. We'll see what sort of use cases it will have. But as we've said before, a lot of what we're seeing now is really the tip of the iceberg to what these tech companies have got. I mean, they are planning 10 years ahead. So if this is what we're being shown now, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some amazing stuff in the pipeline. So, and also they've got tons of money in order to perform that research and development. So I don't think we've really tapped the technology to its full potential as yet. And there's still a long way to go. I mean, you know, I look forward to a robot doing my washing up. That hasn't actually happened yet. And I'm sure it will in the future. But I mean, if we think about how driverless cars are going to change, you know, taxi services, the way we get around cities and things like that, it's, you know, there's a huge amount of change coming, and that is a very relatively simple use case for the technology.
It's crazy how much things change, right? And how fast that they're changing, right? It took a while for like IBM, Microsoft started as doing an operating system for IBM, and then they kind of made their own thing, and they became this behemoth as big and then bigger as IBM. And so we see these evolutions coming. Now, Facebook's trying to make the change to the metaverse, and what I think that has done is it woke up a lot of people to this metaverse narrative that would otherwise be completely asleep. And we saw at the end of 2021, October 2021, a big pump in crypto, everything metaverse related because of that. But a lot of that's gone to sleep. And it'll be interesting to see as Facebook pumps if some of the metaverse projects pump too.
Yeah.
I don't know how that will play out. I'm curiously kind of watching.
Well, I'm still bullish on the space, but I'm bullish over the next, you know, three or 4 years. Mm-hmm. So I don't think, I think if you're buying, it's like buying land, buying a property, and there might not be a lot going on at the moment, and it might feel a bit like a desert, but with the amount that they're spending, I'm sure it's going to become more, well, as sure as I can be, that it will become a interesting place, and it will have a use case that people find. Like you said on the show, we talked about some of the concert type metaverse offerings, where if you can go to a concert and, you know, almost feel like you're there from anywhere in the world, then you're talking of hundreds of thousands of additional tickets being sold for events that would only normally have, you know, 100,000 at the maximum. And also, it's, once you've got the technology and you've invested in it, it's good enough. It means that the revenue will be absolutely massive per each user or each person that uses it. So, you know, it will become a money making machine, I think. But it, you know, obviously there's a long way to go. There's a lot of risks, etc. It's not going to be a straight line, but it does seem to be one of the most sort of obvious use cases for the technology, and there's growing interest. So, and I think I mean, look, I don't look at this every day, and I look at it relatively superficially. I just think, look, this is a good idea. I think this is going to work. And I just sort of occasionally read a little bit on it. So I don't know which businesses are investing in it and where. You know, I really have done very, very little research, but it just feels like it's the next space that will become interesting. And certainly if Meta are spending all this money, yeah, it could be a failure. It could be, but I don't know. I think given how much money they're putting into it, it's most likely not going to be. Otherwise, they'd be investing it elsewhere.
We'll see how it comes together. What's crazy in our world today is like some of the biggest apps today weren't even being used like 4 years ago. And so this ability for a technology to revolutionize things, I don't know that Facebook is going to, or Meta is going to create the best metaverse. I think they're going to help kind of build the highways infrastructure of that world and some ideas, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's some startup that comes out, maybe out of the crypto space or somewhere else, that comes in and it creates something that just is easy to use and that the youth grab a hold of and run with. And it therefore spreads around the world like that. And then they get their parents using it in some cases.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And what that is, I don't know. Am I invested in the metaverse space and the crypto side? Absolutely. Which ones are going to win? I can't say I know. I have some guesses. They're just guesses.
Yeah, I think what will happen is it's a bit like WhatsApp. I mean, WhatsApp was an independent company, and then the thing with these tech giants is they've got a big checkbook. So anyone who develops something, if it's brilliant, they'll buy it. It'll end up going to them. So I don't see. I think all roads end up leading to them because they've got the biggest checkbook, unless somehow they're forced not to, buy it because of competition rules or whatever they might be. But I can't see that. I can't see that happening. So they'll just buy. I mean, if someone comes out with a good idea and they open the checkbook and say, "Here's $1 billion," they're going to say, "Thank you very much." So, unless, of course, they are very, very confident they've got something that will be worth tens of billions of dollars and they want to hold out.
That happens a lot. And if I had an amazing project and they came and wanted to write me a check for it for $10 billion,
yeah,
I think I'd take the $10 billion.
I'd think about it.
You think about it. I wanted to grab the comments. Bill Gardner, before we kicked off, said, "Great time to buy. Let's get this bread." Chris Ashby says, "Hey, Paul J, happy Wednesday."
Happy
John
Wednesday.
Stefano says, "Hello, everyone." Francisco Garcia says, "Rain, great to see you. Smash the like button." Bro Dux says, "D-Hooks, thoughts on massive Binance FUD the last week or so and how this plays out? Maybe Binance exits the USA and what kind of market effects if it does?" Great question. Yeah, I think I think Binance is a relatively good actor in this space, and the bad actors, FTX, trying to point fingers over to Binance and make it Binance's fault. This is a little political play that when there was a massive there was a massive scandal, in the early 2000s, right? This company called Enron had been cooking its books in order to make the stock prices the company look healthier than it was, to make the stock prices boom, because a lot of the executives got paid based on stock options. And if stock prices go crazy, then they make a fortune from those stock options. And so they had gotten like an executive or two from their accounting firm to kind of go along with it. Well, when it all went down, right, what did they do? They hired a PR firm to point all the blame at the accounting firm, even though there was only one or two actors from a 180,000 person firm that were aware, and they tried to rename the whole scandal after that accounting firm. I think that the dirty players trying to point fingers over to Binance, because Binance kind of pulling out and selling because they recognized something was wrong, was the beginning of basically the end. Like, there was a lot of things that were going wrong already, but when Binance did that, it just kind of precipitated the end. So they're trying to blame Binance for it. I've been watching Binance since its inception, and I've seen mostly good actions from them. So a lot of these players involved with FTX have huge political connections, and I think they're going to further try to make things difficult for Binance. And if they get to a certain point, Binance could just close down their Binance.us, right? Because already the Binance.com doesn't allow U.S. investors. And so if they close down Binance.us, they just say, "Peace out. I want nothing to do with you, U.S." So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I would tend to comment on. I'd defer to yourself about that. But
more deep in the space, because none of this shows up on the price. Well, it does, but like,
yeah, but I think it's human nature. You know, they're in a fight, and they're going to try and, obviously, as you say, they're going to try and make it so that it's not, doesn't look like it's their fault in any of the gray areas. But there is a danger that if Binance decides to operate outside the US, and you know, that's the thing about crypto, it's it will move to the jurisdictions that treat it the best, and it's not going away. So it'd be pretty short-sighted to do that. I think they may be reversing their policy on that, but you know, who knows?
We'll see. If the US continues to be so short-sighted, like half of the US entrepreneurs in the coming 5 years will probably leave the US to go work in these crypto favorable jurisdictions, because crypto allows the internet to do things that it couldn't do before. And so it's going to revolutionize some things and make some things that were able to be done before, but make them more secure in some ways. It unlocks some things. So there's a technology boom here waiting to happen. Which country benefit most from that boom? That is yet to be seen. Let's jump into some price action, Paul. What do you see in the dollar and kind of the macro picture?
Sure. Yeah. Let's have a look at some charts. Always nice to do that. So yeah, are you going to put my chart up on the screen?
Oh, my bad.
It's okay.
Just went into a comment.
Yeah, no problem at all. So so here we are. Here's the dollar index. I know we always start with that, but it's really important that we do, because for me, this is a gauge of risk on and risk off, and it doesn't necessarily have a one-to-one relationship with Bitcoin and the crypto space, but it's close enough to give a broad brush flavor as to what's going on in the minds of investors, and whether they're looking to add more risk or take risk off the table. And obviously we want them to take more risk. That will happen when the dollar is going down. So as the dollar goes down, more risk is taken in the markets. And as you can see in the last few weeks, we've had a bounce in the US dollar. This is a dollar basket against major currencies. So we were looking for a bounce. Up to around 106 was the target. So we're not far off that. Thing with corrections, it's always difficult to know exactly when they're going to stop, because they're moving against the major trend, which I think is now to the downside. So we could get a bit more out of it, or it could top out here. I'm not really sure, but it doesn't feel like it's over yet. The market is in a period of indecision, and the reason for that is it's looking at the numbers that are coming out in order to decide whether US interest rates have topped. Now, if we quickly have a look at the 10-year yield. So this is how much 10-year US government bonds will yield. So it's the safest place as to where you can put your money. Well, actually, 6-month money is the safest place, because no government wants to default on their short-term debt. I mean, it's extremely unlikely that they will default on their longer-term debt, but it's also possible. But if we go out to the 2-year, you can see between the 2-year and the 6-month, things are pressing near the high. I know this is a bit of a compressed chart because of the moving average, but if we look at the 2-year, you can see how this is pushing upwards, which is what I was expecting. So this is causing a bit of a pause in the markets, because if you can get a higher rate of interest just by keeping it in a bank account, or keeping it on deposit, or buying government bonds, then that's naturally going to pull risk out of the broader market. Would you want to invest in something that could go bust, or did you want to invest in something that gives you a guaranteed return? Now, I'd also say that there's a risk in putting money in something with a guaranteed return, because inflation might actually be higher than this number, and it pretty much is. So in many ways, it's still losing money, but it's just a bit safer than certain other projects. So this is what the market's looking for. So yields are edging up, because the bonds need to attract money, and they're going to have to offer higher and higher rates in order to attract that money. So they're trying to pull money out of the equity markets when they do so. So I think the 10-year yield would probably trade towards this 4.33%. I think it's actually going to break through it, and we're going to see a move closer to around 5%. That's near where I think the market will top. And so we're not there yet. So there's a bit more to go. So this is why I tinge my view on the crypto space and on the broader markets with a little bit of caution until we get to that point. So for the moment, if we look at the most sensitive of all the markets, which is the equity markets, the Dow seems to be doing pretty well. It's in a correction. Sentiment is extremely bearish, and it's still people out there looking for a crash. The Nasdaq is in the same position. It's just correcting. It's had a bounce from January. The rally started in October last year. It's underperformed, but we talked about that. The S&P has is sort of in the middle. It's had a really good bounce from October last year. This is a good move, but it's actually not near its high. It's much further from its high than the Dow is. So the Dow's performing relatively better, and these markets are actually performing worse than some of the European markets, which is quite interesting because the US markets usually outperform. So where we are is the dollar is relatively has rallied in the last few weeks. So this is a rally in a bear market that could continue higher. It's put a little bit of pressure on the crypto assets, not a huge amount, but a bit of pressure. And this is why it failed to take out these key resistance points. So the big resistance at 25,212 in Bitcoin, that's a major level. Now, look, it might go up and have another go at taking that out. If it does, that's great. That would indicate that, our view that the market is in a major, or has started a major upward move, would be solidified. But I'm going to keep my cautious, I like the look of this chart as well, but I'm going to stay slightly cautious just because, it has had a good day today, but it's still below this resistance. We need to break through this resistance, and we need to see broader risk on strategies coming on as well before I can say that this corrective phase is over. Now, if it was going to be symmetrical to the low that we've seen, and this becomes an inverse head and shoulders, which it doesn't have to, but it would be interesting if it did. This would be the center of the chart. This would be the left shoulder. This would be the head. The right shoulder would come all the way back down, potentially as far as this 17,592, which is quite a big correction. So I don't know if I think it will come back that far, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it get close to this 19,666 or 20,000 level. If it can get to 20,000, I'd be thinking that's a good sort of buy point. But I may be forced to buy into the rally because this is such a massive resistance point. If it takes that out, it would be an indication that the trend has started quicker than I expected, which is obviously possible. So that's why I'm looking at these levels. But that is a massive resistance point for me. So it's not surprising it struggled to break it, given the macro theme. So we'll have to just see in the next few weeks how it plays out. But I do think as we go into the Q2, because we're going to be at the end of Q1, as we go into Q2, things should start to clear. And I think the market participants will be much more interested in taking on risk. So we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah, we love that. So that would be interesting if this does play out like an inverse head and shoulders, that if it goes that route, then it will correct down more to about 20,000, maybe even a little bit below. And the period that it traded sideways there, that's a good 6 months. So
the bigger the base, the bigger the rally that should follow. And and also the power of this move is indicative of the start of something major. So I don't talk much about Elliott wave theory, but this is indicative of the start of something. So when the market cottoned on how cheap everything was and how much of a catch-up play there was in the crypto space, they just were, clearly buying like there was no tomorrow. And if you remember, the market was very short. The sentiment was extremely negative. So it was likely there was a lot of short positions expecting the market to crash. And there were all these warning signs that sentiment was overdone and the price action wasn't confirming the downward move. And a lot of this move to the upside has been short covering, because remember, there's trading in Bitcoin futures, which then have to be covered in the equivalent cash market. So I think the market was definitely short, and it's had a very good rally, as we can see. But this is like a wave. It's like the first wave for me. So first wave up, correction, then we get into the next wave, which should be the biggest and the strongest of these waves.
That'll be exciting. Yeah. I'm kind of split between whether I think we're gonna trade sideways for a while and take off. But what you're saying, I hadn't factored in the strength of that move into the equation.
Yeah, I mean, I think
suggest that maybe it happens sooner rather than later.
I mean, it could well do. I let the market tell me what it wants to do, and what we're seeing is very good relative strength. I mean, it's corrected, but not a lot. So either there's more to come for the correction, or if it starts to break higher, I'm going to have to take note of that. I know some people in the chat are very, very bullish and saying now's the time to get in and stuff, and I can understand that. I am bullish long term. I'm just trying to be a little bit cautious in the short term, just because of the macro picture. But yeah, I mean, I might have to chase it higher, which is the kind of risk I've got to take. But I think also what's been going on in the altcoins has been really interesting. I know before we look at them, we should really look at Ethereum, but those have been strong, and that is a very good indicator that risk has come back into the market. But typically things will get overdone in the short term, correct back, and then off we go again. So
run again.
Yeah, they'll go in waves. So, if there's one more rate rise in the pipeline, I think that could take the heat off the market just a little bit, and then everyone gets bearish again and goes, okay, that's it, the rally's over. It was just a dead cat bounce. They start all these stories about it won't continue, and then for me, that's a really good sign. The contrary opinion theory that things are going to move up, especially if the price action hasn't retraced that much, or has retraced and then is in the move back up again, if you see what I mean. So it's already come down and it's moving back up into bad news. So that's the sort of game plan for the moment, and we'll have to just see how things play. Sometimes the market is a bit more tricky and harder to predict. Sometimes it's really kind of straightforward, but it's always a level of difficulty that it requires a certain amount of analysis. But yeah, straight line moves are, they're very nice. They're great. And we've seen a very good first phase of a straight line move. So for me, it's like, well, will it just continue like this? Well, it'd be great if it does, but it seems a bit unlikely with yields going up the way they are, that it would manage just to keep going up in a straight line. But if it does, brilliant, because I think that's it's great for the space that it's so strong.
Yeah, let's take a look at ETH, and then let's jump into some of these altcoins.
Yeah, sure. So ETH here hasn't made its major base yet, and it's still struggling around this 1720 level that we've been speaking about for quite a few weeks. Now it's hovering below it, which for me is a bit of a warning sign that it might want to have a run at it. So given where we are today, and given there's nothing market-wise in terms of data coming out in the very short term, it's a bit tricky, so I don't know where we're going to be next week. Are we going to be closer to this 1433, or are we going to break through here? I don't know. It's the short-term answer. I think long-term we are going to break it, so I just don't know if it's going to be via a correction. To be fair, the dollar has been going down a bit, which would open up the door for a bit more of a move higher. But the major base comes in when we take out this 2031. So if it gets through, 1720, it's got to close through that. It could just test it, but there's lots of resistance in that space. If it breaks through there, then 2031 is the final target. And that for me is the big double bottom pattern that then sets us up for a move all the way to this resistance line, which I think it will take out anyway at some stage in the next sort of, well, this year, potentially into early next year. So taking a step back and looking at the big picture, this is developing a very interesting base. And it's what we would expect to see in a major base. But in the very short term, yeah, I think we might just hover below this resistance point, come back for a correction. Even if it becomes quite a deep correction, this is the developing upward trend line. So the trend for me is now up based on this line, and the moving averages have crossed to the upside, which is good. The 200-day, which is the purple line, that's flattened off a little bit because the rate of change has come off, but that's still fine. It's still operating close to the end of this rally. So if we think of the end of this, buying phase being around here, around 1700, it's gone sideways for quite some time. So since the end of January, it's been hovering around, and I'm pretty sure that that's because the market is waiting for the next big signal. So broadly speaking, the chart still looks bullish. We're just stuck in this correction. I'd be mindful it could go a bit lower before it goes up again, but big picture, I'm still bullish. So it really depends if you're trying to trade it week to week or you're just looking at the big picture and, you're in a buy and hold. And again, that's down to any individual's own strategy. In terms of some of the other markets, I'll just look at Solana just because it's the next one down.
Yeah.
And people are interested in that. We talked about this 27 level last week, or maybe the week before, but we've definitely discussed it. And this 27 level is becoming a major resistance point. I mean, it was anyway, so it struggled to break it. And we've got the 200-day moving average here that it touched, came off, broke through it a bit, not really conclusive, and then it's come off again. So that is struggling to break this $27 level, but you can see why, because of all the resistance that was there on the way down. So this support becomes resistance. It becomes like a big barrier to the market breaking through. Now that sets up two things. One, it sets up potential for a correction, which I think this is the start of a bull move. So the way that's gone up, that's a bull move. So if it corrects, we can look at, say, 50% of that move as a buying point. But it also sets up, if this breaks through 27, then we're into the next leg up. So I almost prefer to buy the breakout because it's confirming strength. And I know that's sometimes hard to do, but for me, it's like it's trying to go to the next level. And if it takes out this resistance, there are people who've maybe shorted it or have to cover it or whatever. But that for me would be a good sign. So it's stuck in this consolidation, but I think it's worth keeping in mind that this resistance buildup is becoming quite big. And when it goes, I would expect to see some sort of sharp squeeze in the same way that it did on the way up. So that for me is looking very interesting as well.
Cool. Well, let's jump over and take a look at XDC.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, XDC. Let's go over here. So yeah, XDC. Did we look at it before? I can't really remember actually.
I don't think we have.
We haven't. Okay, because look, this chart has a similar signature to the Decentraland and the Sandbox, which we looked at, well, probably quite a long time ago. We can have another quick look at it. But look, what I like about this, well, first of all, I'd say the way it's trading would suggest to me, that this is actually not an up-to-date chart. Look at that. That is May. So let's put that in again. XDC. Why is that not up to date? So is it this one? Yeah, that's the one I just put in. XDC. Which one would it be from here? Because that's is it XFin or I can try XFin.
Now XDC XDC network
XDC network, is it? Okay, I'm not sure I'm seeing it on this.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, because you're seeing. That might be it.
Okay. Shall I look at the next one while you have a quick look and see if you can find it?
Well, so go back up. The ones that say XFIN, if you look to the right, it says XDC network.
Okay, XDC. Oh yeah, XDC. Yeah, that's the one I chose. Yeah, that's this one.
Okay, is that the one that cuts off? No, that's right.
No. This one's right. It was the one I chose before that was wrong. Yeah. So actually, this is. I'm glad that other one was wrong because this is a much more interesting chart. So what we've had is upward trend, obviously this big correction, but we've got this consolidation going on here. Now you can see from the price action, it looks thinly traded to me. So without knowing anything about it, I know we're going to get some fundamentals on it in a bit, but I would probably suggest it could be quite small in terms of volume. But in any case, the chart is looking interesting in the sense that this is forming a base. Now, what I like to see is clear breakout points that could indicate that the market's going to go higher. And we've got that at 3 cents, and we've also got it more clearly here at 3.6 cents. So this horizontal line for me is a line in the sand for a breakout. So I really like that resistance point, and the closer it gets to it, for me, the more interested I am in a potential breakout. Now, at the moment, it's just going sideways, so it's still in this consolidation. But this is a perfect one to keep an eye on whilst the markets are quiet, because if it takes this resistance out, I think it's going to get very, it's going to start sort of catching up with everything else. So if we draw in this trend line and explain why I'm bullish, because it's broken this trend line, it's actually used it as support as well. And it's just forming the next base or the next basing point that I could potentially be drawing my next upward trend line. So at the moment, you could draw a trend line here, but it's broken. So I'll just show you what I mean. If I put in this line here, from here to here, that line's broken. So I can't draw that in. The next point is here, but it's only got a day's worth of or a few days worth of price action to confirm it. So it really needs to get up here to confirm this as a point. Now it could be there, but I just don't feel that confident that's the support as yet. If it takes out this resistance here, which I was mentioning before, then it would solidify that as a trend line, and then we could use that as a buy point with a stop loss below this line. But generally speaking, it looks like it's basing, and it hasn't moved yet. And when everything else has, the market has a tendency to look around for things that have underperformed, and they get, hoovered up in a risk-on environment. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
So on this one, what would you say at the current place?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So the current, for me, it's a wait, but it's a wait with interest, if I can add that.
Paul, wait with exclamation point. Let me share.
Yeah.
So this comes from one of our longtime community members who's also in our private Discord, Sailing, and he says, "Hi JNP, could you please cover XDC? They are another ISO 222 coin, market cap of 378 million, a little high until you look at them against their potential market. Circulating supply of 13.8 billion, 1/3 of supply in circulation. It's an EVM compatible chain and a fork of Ethereum. Enterprise base with interoperable contract and proof of stake consensus with transaction speeds of 2,000 transactions per second. This project checks a lot of boxes for me. While they are a proof of stake consensus, they are also proof of work for new block creation, an interesting hybrid system that gives them better security, making them even more attractive for enterprise. They have a real partnership with Chainlink almost 2 years ago. The utility of this coin is geared towards international trade settlement. Trillions of dollars are settled around the world every day. Backgrounds of the founders is impressive and deep in the banking industry, which checks another box. They have a good distribution ledger, and it looks like they're working on tokenizing gold assets as well, which fits with the background of the founders. I think the ISO coin story will play out over the next 2 years, kicking off with the mandates this March and deadlines in 2025. For me, they still have an attractive price point, and they've been trading in the range for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, great suggestion. Definitely sailing. Thank you for including the fundamentals behind why you like it. Very good write-up.
I mean, it's definitely the ground floor for this, pretty much. I mean, obviously, yeah, you could go further back, but in terms of where the technicals are, it hasn't started the upward trend yet. So it's a very interesting point and quite a compelling story there. But
it's about 90% down from its previous highs, right? So big retracement.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's gearing up for something. So it's as I say, it's definitely worth watching. But that's interesting. It's actually bigger than I thought it would be given the price action. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That there's more volume. So yeah.
Let me see. It's traded on markets. Oh, that's the wrong one. What? XDC. Let me just see what it's traded on, what markets. And okay, so part of the reason it has lower trading volumes is the biggest exchange it's on is on Kucoin, then Bitfinex, Bittrex, and Gate.io and Wobi. So it's not on Coinbase or some of the other ones. Otherwise, you'd probably see, if it were on Binance and Coinbase as well, you'd probably see higher trading volumes. All right, let's move over to stacks. This is an interesting one. For me, this is actually a buy, the one we just looked at, XDC. Although I'm not buying it personally because it's in a coin market cap range where I'm not picking up any blue chips, and it's kind of at the baby blue chips range.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, stacks, is again, this is a very interesting one in terms of look how it's just gone straight up. It's like, do you buy it here or do you wait? Now I seem to remember us talking about this, but I could be wrong. Where the resistance is $1, and it's hit that and it's come off. And so I would say that there's enough resistance here for me to want to wait before jumping in. But I can't ignore the power of this move and how this indicates that that the trend should be going higher. It just needs to get through this resistance psychological $1 level. So I think it would help if it would just pull back a little bit, consolidate for a bit, gear up for a move to the upside. But I can't fault it given that it's a straight line move and it's only the psychological level that's holding it back. So I would say it is a buy, but it's a buy anticipating a pullback. So if I don't look at this in another sort of month or so, I would have said, given this move, it's ahead of the curve. I would have hoped to have bought it a little bit earlier than this. So, but given that it's showing strength, I can't ignore that. So big resistance at $1. It's in a zone for a retracement. Hopefully that will just be a shallow retracement before it squeezes higher. If it can get through this resistance point, the only major levels up ahead will be at $1 sort of 70 to 80, and then $2.68, and then the highs. So there's only like 3 major levels on the way up. So it's performing very well. It's starting what looks to be a major trend, but it'd be unrealistic to expect it to go all the way up there in a straight line. So that's why I'm thinking, timing wise, we should be waiting for a pullback.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So a little bit of context. I had forgotten about this project. Just a sec, I'm going to share my screen. So CoinMarketCap gives us some good information. If you scroll down under this part, what is Stacks? Stacks is a layer 1 blockchain solution that is designed to bring smart contracts and decentralized applications to Bitcoin. So recently, in the past number of months, they found a way to do NFTs kind of on the Bitcoin network and smart contracts interacting with the Bitcoin network, which is what Stacks is designed to do, is create smart contracts or bring smart contracts and decentralized applications to the Bitcoin network. And because that's in the narrative, it's running like crazy. Now, Blockstacks, the reason I forgot about it is because it used to be called, or Stacks used to be called Blockstack, which is when I heard about it, right? So this was talked about and launched in after the last bull market. So in the last bear market is really when I had heard about it, and they talked about how they were going to do these things. Some of their notable investors were Digital Currency Group and Winklevoss Capital.
Oh, yeah.
So it's got some big backers behind it, which I like, but I just personally don't buy after large green candles like this, right? Like, if I see a nice pullback and it looks like it's going to run some more to me, yes. But right now is definitely not a time that I'm buying. In fact, if I had some of this, I would be taking profits out on it. And then possibly I would get some more in after a nice kind of pullback, especially the overall market. If something does come into the narrative and then pumps, it'll pull back nicely, sometimes before running again, which brings us to one of the next altcoins we're going to look at, which is AGIX, which if everyone remembers, 2 weeks ago, everybody in the world was talking about AGIX or Singularity and other artificial intelligence projects.
Yeah. Yeah. So here we are. I mean, there was the consolidation breakout, and we've had another one, and it looks like it's going for another breakout. So this stopped at the all-time high on this chart, which you'd expect there to be some resistance, but it looks like it's going again. So it's ignoring the fact that the macro scene is probably in a bit more of a consolidation phase, and it just wants to go up. So I think we've got to try and go with this trend. So I'd have to say it's a buy. It's caught at this resistance point, which obviously it needs to cross through this fairly quickly. If it doesn't get through this week, then I would be a little cautious, because these patterns are just pausing phases where the market should then move up aggressively. I would expect, if it does squeeze higher, to then probably have a pullback back to this area again. So it moves up and then comes back, consolidates, because things get overcooked, and then people get overexcited and then take profits, and then it develops the trend again. But as it stands on this chart, it's going up. It looks like it wants to take out prior resistance, so we have to go with the trend. Where I would say things have perhaps changed, it would have to fall quite a long way for that. So it really depends on. I like to have a parachute where to get out if it starts to correct. Mm-hmm. So I would say in the short term, if it breaks through this 33 cents, in the long term, I'd have to see if there's some form of pattern or something else that's developed. But if it got much below 16, I know that's a big correction. You have to put a stop somewhere. Or for me, I have to put a bailout point somewhere. And there's no real other important support or resistance points with which to hide your stop. So the only other thing to do for me would be to work out how much risk I want to take with it. And then, if you're buying with real money, you can obviously sit with it and just hold the position. You won't be forced out. But I still like to think of places where I would, change my view on it, and where I'd go from bullish to, much more cautious. But looking at this chart, going back a bit further, we can see how it's come in a downward trend, hit this resistance. Obviously, we've had this big correction, and now it's coming again to break through there. So, breaking through this area here at 65 cents would be a big event. And it's looks like it wants to do it. So we shall see. So even on a pullback, as long as it stays above this 23 to 15 cents area, I'd say it's still looking interesting, because will it break it on this go? I hope so. I can't say for sure, but I hope so. If it doesn't, then a shallow retracement into this zone and then another run at it would make it very, very compelling. So, I think I'm going to stick with the the buy here, and keep an eye on it. So that's a really good one. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, so you would probably put some stops in case, but yeah, this could take a run through and break through, and if it does, it'll probably run up considerably.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. I was just going to say the problem is when you're looking at a well, not the problem, but when you're looking at a log chart, what looks like a small move here is actually ends up being percentage terms a really big move. So when you're looking at, like, say, a break here, it's actually percentage terms quite a big retracement. And I wouldn't normally want to put stops that far away, but that's kind of what you either have to do it on the price action, or you do it on a percentage of how much capital you're willing to lose on the trade. So for me, either way, but I suppose with fundamentals, it's until the narrative changes. So it really depends on how you want to trade it.
Yeah, I'm curiously watching this. I don't know whether so during the last crypto winter bear market, like, and near the bottom, what would happen is that sometimes things would come into narrative and it would only last for a couple of weeks, and then they would fade away. I do think the AI narrative is fairly strong, and how strong it was, I think there's a lot of work that's gone in over the years into AI that all of a sudden we saw what it looks like and what it can do. So I'm not convinced that narrative is over yet. Normally it would be, but it is a very strong narrative. I think AI is going to be very integral in the future. Like we talked about self-driving cars. AI covers a lot of different things. Where it often goes in the crypto space is, how do we use AI to make investment or inform investment or give trading signals and other things. So yeah, it seems like Singularity wants to run some more. And so if you do notice, you see these little pullbacks, and that's what we haven't seen yet on Stacks, really. Stacks has been a straight run up. There's usually a pullback and then an indication of when that's breaking up again. If I were to try to trade Stacks, I would be looking for it to pull back and then give an indication that it's going to take another run. Though it could be that the Bitcoin, the smart contract layer on Bitcoin, maybe that narrative is done for a while. I don't know. It's still early on. Like, it's really only been in the narrative for about a week. So we'll see. But it would not be a point that I'd be buying Stacks more. Singularity is tempting, exactly where it's at. For me, I'd wait to confirm the breakout, and then I might put like a small bit in just to trade and swing it up, and take a little bit of a ride up. All right. Cool. Let's take a look. We've also got some other ones that have not done so well. Some of the biggest losers the past week, and I like looking at some of the biggest losers because I like buying on sale. So let's take a look at Arweave, which we haven't looked at on this channel in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I don't remember looking at it, actually. It must be one that we just
like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, right. Okay. Arweave, it's in a consolidation, which is very nice. So is it gearing for a breakout? We'll have to see. I mean, this overall trend is still up. This is a correction. I can't draw a low from here as yet. Or I can't because there's no data there. So I don't know where the actual low is. But the question is this the next higher low? Can we confirm that? It's moved quite nicely away from it, but it hasn't continued to create a base. And that's the big question for this. We need to see it base properly, and then we can start talking about a run up this at this all-time high. So for me, the big sort of switch on area where I think I get excited about it is as it approaches $17. So it got to 14. It's come into a correction. It's a small double top there, but it's still more range bound than anything else. If it comes down to around $8.50, it's quite a lot of support there. So I wouldn't mind a little nibble around $8.50. And if that holds and it moves back up again through 14, that would be the sort of path I'd expect it to take if it's going to be bullish. But the main signal is a break of this $17. And the target would be to go to 22. That's the next big resistance point. It's actually fairly close to the breakout point. But once, or if it does get through there, that would be a pausing point for me. So it might pause there and then it should continue on its way. So for the moment, it's definitely a wait because the signal isn't there as yet, even though there are some areas where you could think about picking it up, or where I could think about picking it up. But longer term, it's one you just have on the back burner. You definitely keep an eye on it. And if $14 goes, I'd definitely be getting ready to buy some, because it would make this breakout through $17.50 very compelling for a larger move higher.
Yeah, it just took a run recently, so for me, it's definitely a wait, and hoping it comes back down some more, because it took a strong run up from $6 all the way up to $14. So it more than doubled, and I'd want to pick it up on a good buy. I do like this one long term. So it's permanent decentralized storage, which it really ran its price history. It ran with the narrative of, if you look when it did good. So March of 2021, when we had the bull market, it did pretty good. And it went from its lows in the bear market of like 50 cents or 52 cents, I think back here. Let's see. So it would have been about $2 here, went all the way to $28, and then all the way up to $85 after the metaverse spike happened, because they were talking about the importance of like permanent storage. And so Arweave was squarely inside of that permanent storage narrative and did extremely well. And now it's pulled back and right around $10. So yeah, it probably it ran doubled in price, and usually in the, as we're kind of bouncing along the bottom and no major things happening right now, it probably come down a little bit cheaper, which would make for a decent entry point. Now, unfortunately, it's in a market cap range where I'm not buying a lot in this market cap range. 336 million, half of its supply essentially is in circulation already. So if you see a total supply here of 63 million, and there's 33 million in circulation. Okay, that's not bad that half their supply is in circulation. I like it, so I just want it to be a little bit cheaper. All right, let's jump over to Avalanche.
Are you a wait on that last one then, or
yeah, I am a wait on it.
Okay. Yeah. So over to Avalanche. Kind of similar in terms of the price action. We're in this consolidation. It's had a little bit of a run up, which is great, but it's this first move is very good. I like the way it's surged and it's held on to it. This consolidation is I actually like this consolidation because this gives it a base with which to launch higher from. Things that go up too fast, you feel like it needs a pullback. And it's also building up some really nice resistance around this $21 area, which I think we mentioned before, given that there is some little spots there that show that that's quite a key area. So I would say if it breaks through $21, that's a signal that's resuming the trend, this upward trend. And I'd look for a move up to the $30 area as a general, for me, that would be the next point where it could consolidate. It hasn't moved as yet, which is a little bit of a negative because you'd expect it to maybe be leading the market, or you'd want to be in something that's leading the market. But as I say, things can go through waves, and the way the market works is it looks around for things that haven't moved and then jumps on them. And this is doing a fairly decent consolidation to allow for us to jump in. It's giving us time, is what I'm saying here. It's giving us time to think about where we might want to get in, which is nice. So right here, right now, I think it's a wait, because it could get a little bit cheaper. There's support around 14, which I think if I was only trading this, that's where I'd put a buy in, because I think there's some really good support down there. I wouldn't want to see it below $14. But if it hangs around here and then tries to take out this 21, I think given how strong the resistance is there, any break of 21 would get me into the market. So whilst it's not moving yet, I think it will do. And I'm just looking at the path it might take for its breakout. And I wouldn't want to miss it if it's breaking through $21, $21.50. So yeah, again, this is one that's we'd have to keep an eye on and wait for the breakout. So it's a wait for the moment, but there's some really good levels to trade.
Yeah, I like Avalanche, and it's one that I've owned somewhat in the past. One of the strengths, I think, behind it is not only its transactions per second, but the team behind it. And I feel like the team behind it is really solid. It's down almost 90% from its highs. And so it's a great blue chip at an attractive price. And I like that it's pulled back some. It's not in its lows where it was at $12 before, but it may not revisit that price again. So it's not a bad price. I would say for me, it's a buy at this price, just a nibble at this price, hoping actually that it does break lower for some reason. It might not, but break lower for like a second good bite at the apple.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's jump over. Instead of Polygon, I want to look at one because, and that's Bumper. I was able to schedule the CEO to do a live stream later today. So that will be 3 p.m. Pacific time. Let's take a look at their price. We talked about this last week as well.
Yeah. It's funny actually, because after we looked at it, I was thinking about my comment about whether they would make more money when the market's going up as opposed to going down. And what I was saying was, I thought perhaps the way they may be called on their contracts more when the market goes down. Maybe that's why they would make less money when the market goes down and more when it goes up. Now, you explained very well that that's actually not how the model works. But then I was thinking more people would probably be interested in trading in the first place if the market is going up, because of course most people want to buy in the space. So there generally would be more activity. So then I was thinking, yeah, that could be why the market might, or this one might do better in a broader bull market in the crypto space, as opposed to actually the way they structure their contracts. So so given that, I think that, it's a very interesting future ahead for this. In terms of the price action, it started to pull back from the zone that we discussed, or very close to it. So we were talking about this 8 cents area because that's the last major resistance point, and it got very close to it and it's pulled back again. It's had a very decent run, so you couldn't criticize anyone for wanting to take some profits and take some money off the table if they were short-term trading it. But what this is allowing this trend to do is to fall into a more sustainable long-term angle of trend. So a pullback around here, around sort of 5 cents or so, would also be in keeping with this parabolic move up in the lows. So if you look at how the lows are pitching in, even if it got to around here, that would still be fairly decent run of incline in terms of the way the lows are moving. So, and actually I think it would be good for it to do that, to pull back a little bit. Again, whilst it's really nice to see things going up in a straight line, it's not sustainable from a long-term perspective. So these pullbacks actually do give the market a chance to move into a more sustainable long-term trend. So I think it's a wait here. So I'd wait for a pullback. If it does take out this sort of the tripwire for a proper buy, or a automatic buy, is a breakthrough this 8 cents. Would it be at 9? Yeah, just over 8 cents. Because obviously if it starts to run, I want to capture it. So if it's on the move, I have to get in there. And I don't know when I'm going to look at it again. So I'd have to put that as a caveat, because it might sort of come back a little bit, and then next time we see it be all the way up here, and I'll be thinking, yeah, I should have bought that breakout. But for the moment, I think I'm happy with looking at this in terms of a correction. But it is close to some very good resistance that I'd be keen to see it break, and it would improve the long-term outlook for this chart quite considerably.
Cool. Stay tuned for those that haven't followed this one. Bumper is one of my favorite ones in this bear market because it is a risk. It's a low cap coin. It's at a juicy price point, and I'll share some details. So the current market cap is 3 million. So this is a range that's highly attractive if I like the team behind it, and if I think it has potential to be a lot higher than this. What I like about Bumper is they're doing something that's revolutionary. Don't know whether it'll be successful, but if it is, this market cap could go into the billions and tens of billions. And so it's a risky play. Anything in market cap this range is a very risky play. But this isn't my only holding, so it's not like I would go all in on this, even myself, even though I like it, because that would be too much risk. But I definitely have a hefty chunk diversified into this because I like where it can go. Now, for your own research, the reason I like to set up interviews is so I can bring on the teams and you can hear from them yourself. That way you can feel out whether you like it, because don't buy this because I like it. That's my decision, and that's my risk tolerance. Two other quick ones. Let's jump to. I want to look at WanChain, and several viewers are requesting it. WanChain has been doing nicely again, and WanChain is a strategic partner of the channel, and I love this project. It's one I've followed for forever. So, do you mind if we take a look over at WanChain?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. Oh, yeah. No, this is nice. I'm pretty sure we talked about this being a buy last time. Perhaps I should go back and have a look and see what I said, but this for me is still a buy. It's moving up nicely. This is exactly what I like to see when the market's basing. You've got these rising lows and it's compressing and pushing it into resistance. There's good resistance here at 25 cents. It's broken through it, come back for a retest. Now it's pushing up again. So yeah, there will be some resistance around here from the bear market, which could slow it down. But overall, this trend is starting to move up nicely. And so I would still say that that's a buy. Now, if I draw this downward trend line in, I'm pretty sure that it will have broken it. Yeah, and it has, it broke it, a while back. So I'm just looking for reasons that might hold it back. And other than the resistance that comes in around 43 cents, that's the biggest one I can see on the horizon. Yeah, this is developing nicely. So another move up, correction. If it gets to 43 cents, that'd be a good pullback place. But I like the way this is moving higher. Also like the fact that you can draw in an upward trend line here and you can trade. What I would like to do is hold it whilst it's above that trend line. So I've got my automatic bailout because I don't know what's going on in the fundamentals, and I'd have to sort of bring up Jay and say what's happening. But my strategy would be, whilst it's above that trend line, it's in a buy zone. So, and I like the way it's trading here. So also just one final thing, this 25 cents level, if it does pull back, that should be good support. So it shouldn't get much below that on a pullback. So that's why I like it here, because it's relatively close to that at the moment.
Yeah, great point. Let's take a look at, for me, I like this project and I've held it long term. So I still have a bunch of this. And am I buying more? I'm tempted to buy more, but I already hold a bunch. So for me, it's kind of a wait to see if it comes back a little bit closer to that trend line. Is it undervalued? I feel like it's been undervalued for a year. So yeah, I still think it's undervalued for where it could go. Let's take a look at OMI before we wrap up today.
Yeah, sure. Let me go back to my charts here. So OMI was, look, it was we were looking for the breakout, weren't we, of this 0.00105. So that was the blue line breakout that we wanted to happen, and it was pressuring it. It did it, and it's got over it, and it's come back again. So, that's a little frustrating. But on the positive side, these moving averages are converging together. The trend is developing to the upside, and I feel that whilst this trend line is in effect, we can still keep looking at the potential upside for this chart. So, it's a higher risky play. It's a more risky play than perhaps some of the others. But it is showing some signs of life. If it was still down here, I'd be a bit more worried about what was going on, but it is developing this upward trend. It's fairly typical that it's come off against resistance against the 200-day moving average. Some of the other altcoins have done that. If you look at Solana, it's done that. So it's correcting when others have corrected. Even Bitcoin against resistance has corrected. But to be fair, those have had very strong moves. This hasn't quite got going yet. So we're still trying to get this thing to move into a nice upward trend. It's not quite happening yet, but there's still the potential. So whilst that trend line is in effect, the support levels are in effect, I still think it's a buy. Bit disappointing that it broke the resistance and came back through it, but that doesn't turn it bearish. It just means it's back in the consolidation. Great
points. Yeah, I like this one. I've been stocking up on it, especially while it was below 0.1 cents. It's at 0.1 cents now, which for me is still a buy area. This is one of the exceptions that I hold for. A lot of times I don't touch things in market caps of this range. One of the reasons I'm excited about this one is that there hasn't really been a utility for their token. There's a tiny bit created by some other companies in that you can use the OMI token in some of the other projects that have launched in the ecosystem. But their use case, where if you stake the token, it'll unlock some benefits for you on their collector's app, their VV collector's app, is, I guess, moving forward at a pace that I'm happy to see, and a lot of other people. And so when that staking, those collector rewards come by staking the token, or what they call the OMI utility program, it'll give a pretty strong use case for the token, which it hasn't had. And I think a lot of the people that are collecting will then buy the token. And so it'll still take months and months to roll out. But as the closer we get to that, the more people that will realize they don't have some and want to get some. So I think the bottom is probably in, or very, very close to it. And there's blue skies ahead for this one is my best guess. And so, yeah, I like where it's at, despite it being a market cap that I don't usually touch. Now, there is a burn mechanism of the token. So there are tokens that get burned. And so the circulating supply does decrease over time, which you could call that a use case. I call that a minimal use case. I'm excited about the actual use case coming soon. All right. Let's see if there's anything I missed on the comments. Number of people very excited about Wand Chain technical analysis, want us to look at Wand Chain. Cloud Macro says, I love Wand Chain. That's awesome. And he also said, did you see Wand Chain top community post on CoinMarketCap? I don't know what he's talking about. Oh, I'm not sure what he's referring to. I didn't see that. Cornucopia and Bumper. Maybe we can look at Cornucopia next week. Thank you, William, for the suggestion. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I especially want to thank Paul for joining us. Paul, thank you for your time and sharing your thoughts on what's going on with the price action.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you for your suggestions. And yeah, thank you. See you next week. Look forward to it.
Right. So overall, still the crypto market is somewhat slow right now. We're seeing a little bit of fireworks now and again, which is fun and cool. But generally, this is still a boring market. And just know that good decisions made during these general slow times lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around. this rap I wrote and had a great rapper from the UK perform it. This rap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share that make all the difference in higher returns over time. Thanks so much, everyone.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you're good, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out, cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.